Hi guys, it's time for chapter 4 of I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. Let's get started. One of the pleasant things about being the Channel 5 future star, Helen Rivers often reminded herself, was the hours. 11 o'clock in the morning usually found her stretched in a deck chair, soaking up sunshine beside the swimming pool. Because this particular day happened to be Saturday, it was not exactly her private pool. An assortment of school teachers used it also. But on the usual weekdays, she could sleep half the morning and come down to find that she had the whole lovely area to herself. "I can't imagine why they pay you all that money," her sister Elsa sometimes commented on those weekends when Helen went dutifully home for Sunday dinner. "You don't do anything that anyone else couldn't do. Just smile and play songs and make silly comments." Elsa worked an 8-hour-a-day job at the Ward's department store and was a great believer that the only kind of work that counted was the kind that made your back ache and sent you home exhausted. "Oh, there's more to it than that," Helen tried to tell her. "You're at their beck and call whenever they need somebody to represent the station for publicity reasons. And it can really kill your evenings having to give reports on the 10 o'clock news." Even to her own ears, the statement sounded ludicrous. In all honesty, she knew that being selected as the Channel 5 future star was the culmination of almost every dream she'd ever had. Helen's looks were the best thing she had going for her, and she was born realistic enough to have recognized the fact early. At the age of 12, she had sat down one day and examined herself in the mirror. What she had seen there had been pleasing, but not pleasing enough. Cold-bloodedly, she had analyzed her attributes: good bones, even teeth, fine features. She had a nice chest for her age, but too much weight in her hips. Her coloring was too pale, her hair rather ordinary, but thick and healthy. Her hands were not particularly small, but they were long-fingered and artistic-looking, despite bitten fingernails. She broke the fingernail habit immediately through sheer willpower. The rest took more time, especially the weight loss. Helen liked to eat, and the food that was served in her family's home was usually of the inexpensive and starchy variety. A strenuous diet had brought her figure under control, and experimentation with rinses and makeup had brought out the honey highlights in her hair, fringed her deep violet eyes, her most unusual feature, with long blue-black lashes. What do you think you are, a fairy princess?" Elsa had taunted her. Helen had ignored her. It would have been nice, she had admitted to herself, if such had been the case. As the second daughter in a large family, she had no illusions about magic or fairy godmothers. She had only to look at her own mother, haggard from years of housework and budget stretching and childbearing, and her father sweating out his days at construction work, to know that her chances for a luxurious future were slim. Still, she was pretty, and that could serve for something. It would have to, she told herself, because she certainly had no academic talents. Dropping out of school to accept the offer of the future star job had been more of a relief than a sacrifice. She had stuck through school that far for one reason only. She had fallen in love. She had loved Barry Cox from the first moment she had seen him. Big and broad-shouldered, handsome and popular, he was as close to perfect as any guy she could ever have imagined. As captain of the city's winning high school football team, he could have had his pick of any girl he wanted. His choosing her was the surprising thing, the actual miracle. It had happened so suddenly that she never had been able to figure out the exact circumstances. She had been walking home from school when a bright red sports car had pulled up beside her, and Barry had been in it. "Hi there," he had said. "Climb in and I'll drive you home." When he dropped her off, he had asked her for a date. It had happened that simply, and her world had never been the same again. Now, stretched in the deck chair, letting the warmth of the morning sun sink into her body, she thought, I shouldn't have called him. Barry didn't like to be pressured. She had learned that from his mother. One time soon after they had started dating, before she knew his cell number, she had called him at home to check on what time he was coming to pick her up. Mrs. Cox had answered the phone. "Let me give you some advice, dear," she said in her cool, sharp voice. "Barry is a boy who doesn't react well to being chased. If he wants to talk with you, he will do the calling. Your little affair will last longer that way, believe me." Since then, she had called him only when absolutely necessary. Yesterday's call had seemed at the time to fall into that category, but in retrospect, she realized that it had not. Barry had been irritated. He did have exams to study for. Dragging him away from his books to confront him with that silly note had been ridiculous. His explanation had been so reasonable that it now seemed incredible that she and Julie could not have thought of it themselves. "Excuse me, would it be all right if I sat down here?" The voice came from directly beside her, startling her so that she jumped. Her eyes flew open, and for a moment she was blinded by the sun. "I'm sorry," the young man said. "I didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't. I must have been half asleep. I didn't hear you come up." Helen shaded her eyes with one hand to look up at him. Her glance took in the brown eyes, brown hair, a strong, square-cut face, a medium sort of build. He was wearing olive green swimming trunks cut like shorts. Helen was used to the faces around the apartment complex, and this one was unfamiliar. "You're new here?" she asked. "Just moved in yesterday, apartment 211. Will it bother you if I sit down?" "No, of course not." Helen leaned back in the chair and watched idly as he settled himself into an identical chair beside her. There were plenty of other seats around the pool and a number of other people beside whom he could have sat. "This is the heavy day for sunbathers," she told him. "Saturdays, most people are off from work and trying to build up their tans. My name's Helen Rivers." "Collingsworth Wilson, if you'll excuse the mouthful. Just out of the service. I've been staying out at my folks' place in the mountains and finally decided to cut loose and get my own apartment. I think I'll be going to summer school at the university." "The guy I go with goes to the U," Helen said. She made a point of working such a statement into the conversation as soon as possible upon meeting new people. She had found that it allowed the pleasure of harmless flirtation without presenting the problem of having to reject overtures. "Collingsworth is a different sort of name. Do they call you Collie?" "I've got a family nickname that my kid brother stuck me with," the boy told her, "but Collie's okay too. A lot of people do call me that. I'm like a well-trained puppy. I'll answer to anything." "A well-trained collie?" Helen said, smiling. She was not usually much on puns, but this one had been too easy. "I'm glad to meet you. We're practically next-door neighbors. I'm on the second level, too, down the way from you in 215. "And who's the boyfriend?" Collie asked. "I want to make sure to avoid him." "His name's Barry Cox. He lives on campus, but he comes over a lot. You'll be meeting him. Everybody meets everybody here in the summer." She closed her eyes again and rolled over onto her stomach so that the sun could reach her shoulders. "The pool area makes a wonderful meeting place. We all sit around and talk and party. Four Seasons is a great place to live. I know you'll like it." "I like it already," Collie said simply, "but I'd like it even better if the prettiest girl here wasn't all tied up to some jerk before I could even get my bid in. Have you been hooked up with this guy for long?" "Almost 2 years. We were steadies back in high school, and he's definitely not a jerk." "Do you think I'm burning?" "I don't know," Collie said. "I can't tell what's happening under all that suntan lotion." "Well, I'd better get inside. I've been out here a couple of hours already." Helen rolled over and sat up. I can't afford to start peeling. If I look a mess, I might lose my job. What sort of work do you do when you can't get a sunburn? Collie asked. Are you a model or something? I'm the Channel 5 future star. Despite herself, Helen could not keep the pride from showing in her voice. It was still such a new sensation to be able to make such a statement. Maybe you've seen me on TV. If I had, I'm sure I'd remember it, the boy said seriously. I don't usually watch TV much, but I can see where I'm going to have to start. There's a big screen down in the common area, Helen told him. She picked up the bottle of suntan lotion and got to her feet. He'll be a nice addition to the men around here, she thought objectively. He's not as handsome as Barry by a long shot, but a lot of girls are going to like him. Wait till those two man-hungry school teachers in 214 get a look at him. They'll tear each other to shreds over who gets her hooks in first. Enjoy the sun, she said, but don't doze off the way I did or you might find yourself turned into a lobster. This southwest sun can really get to you when you're not used to it. Got it. Good luck on not peeling, Collingsworth Wilson raised a hand in a casual farewell. He's nice, Helen thought again, as she skirted the pool and climbed the stairs to the second level. The doors to the second-floor apartments all opened onto a narrow balcony. She walked slowly along it, wondering how red she really was. It had been a foolish thing, she knew, to lie out like that, right in the middle of the day. A tan could look great on camera, but it had to be picked up carefully at no more than an hour at a time. If I do peel, she thought to herself, maybe I can work it into a report on the weather. It was good and hot today. I hope you viewers showed better sense than I did. That was the sort of thing that she was beginning to learn to do, to toss out ad-libs. As she kept telling Elsa, there was more to television work than just looking pretty and smiling. You had to think under stress and seem natural and come out with the occasional quirky remarks so that you didn't come across as mechanical or a doll. There was a paper taped to the door of her apartment. She didn't see it until she reached it, and then she could only stand and stare. It was a picture cut from a magazine ad. The text had been cut away, and what remained was the image of a little boy on the bicycle. Okay, that's the end of chapter 4. Come check it out for chapter 5. See ya.